In a 1950s automobile assembly line, a group of Plymouth Fury model cars are nearing completion. Among them, one stands out, a red model. This particular car is under scrutiny by a worker who unfortunately experiences a mishap. As he examines the engine, the hood door unexpectedly shuts, crushing his hand. While he attends to his injury, another worker examines the car from the inside and accidentally spills ash from his cigar onto the seat. As the day progresses, all the workers prepare to leave, except for the supervisor, who notices the red car's headlights are on and decides to investigate, only to discover the injured worker's body. Fast forward to 1978. A student named Dennis arrives at Arnie's house, who is known for being both nerdy and accident-prone. Despite their contrasting personalities, Dennis and Arnie quickly become close friends. A few weeks later, they start their first day of school together, where they gather their supplies from their lockers. Suddenly, a new student named Leigh catches everyone's eye with her stunning looks. Later, Dennis is looking forward to having lunch with Arnie, but his plans are disrupted when he finds out that Arnie's meal has been stolen by Buddy, who is known for bullying. When the school bully learns about this, he storms into the workshop just as Buddy is about to attack Arnie with a knife. Dennis steps in to help, but Buddy flings the lunch across the room, causing Arnie to fall and lose his glasses. Frustrated, Buddy kicks them out of his sight. However, Dennis seizes the opportunity to distract the bully, who is momentarily stunned, allowing Dennis to disarm him with a strike and a punch. At that exact moment, the rest of the group turns on Dennis, but a teacher arrives at the workshop and orders them to cease their aggression. Dennis becomes wary of Buddy and Arnie, who admit to threatening Arnie with a knife, but Buddy denies any involvement. The teacher makes the bully hand over his belongings, revealing the knife he was concealing. Consequently, the bully and his followers are taken to the principal's office. Buddy is expelled from school, while his companions are placed in detention. By the end of the day, Dennis and Arnie discuss their day's events until they stumble upon a car parked in front of a house. Dennis halts, and they investigate, discovering a dilapidated red Plymouth Fury model, identical to the one from the factory, but now in a state of disrepair. Arnie, however, is unfazed and becomes fixated on the car. Later, an elderly man named George Leigh, the car's previous owner, appears. He reveals that the car, named Christine, was once owned by his brother, who had it a few weeks back. George Leigh is eager to sell the car, offering it for $250. Dennis suggests to Arnie that he should reconsider buying such a damaged vehicle, but Arnie is quick to make the purchase. That evening, the young man goes home and shares his new acquisition with his parents. His mother, who is very strict, vehemently opposes the idea, urging him to sell the car. Arnie, however, is adamant, having already managed to make his parents proud by purchasing the car with his own hard-earned money. Even though his mother is firm in her choice, encouraging Arnie to leave the house and drive the car to a repair shop with Dennis. Upon arrival, they are greeted by the car's owner, an irritable elderly man named Will, who is not kind to the two young men, but does allow them to park the car for the night. However, he then instructs them to return home. While returning, Dennis inquires about the state of the car, which looks as dilapidated as Christine's. Arnie explains that he has discovered something as unattractive as himself, but believes it has the potential to improve if he dedicates himself to it. Over the next few weeks, Arnie dedicates himself to repairing the car, working tirelessly both at work and at home. The person who owns the garage keeps being impolite, but decides to employ the young guy to assist him in the garage. In return, Arnie will be able to collect all the scrap metal he requires for his vehicle. Arnie agrees to the deal and keeps working on the car, not realizing that in a strange manner, he's growing increasingly fond of Christine. The following day, Dennis and two of his buddies discuss the new employee, and he's dared to approach her in the library. Arnie agrees to the dare, but when he sits at Leigh's table and asks her out, she informs him she's already committed to another date. Dennis walks away feeling embarrassed by the rejection, and by the end of the day, he visits Arnie's house, as they haven't seen each other much lately. However, when he arrives, Arnie has changed without his glasses, wearing more fashionable attire and adopting a more rebellious attitude. He doesn't even bother to chat with his friend and quickly departs to do some additional work for the shop owner. His mother tries to intervene, but Arnie brushes her off and continues on his way. She then speaks to Dennis, expressing her concerns about her son and his new vehicle. She found out that the last owner of the car died from carbon monoxide poisoning after inhaling it inside the car. Upon learning this, Dennis heads to old George's residence to find out what transpired with his brother. George discloses that after acquiring Christine, his brother became fixated on the vehicle, even after his daughter and wife were killed in an accident involving it. To compound the issue, after his brother's demise, the car inexplicably reappeared at George's residence several weeks later. This revelation only heightens Dennis's concern. By the day's end, Dennis resolves to visit the garage to inspect the car. Upon arrival, he attempts to start the vehicle, but as he turns the key, the radio begins to play, prompting Dennis to flee before anyone notices. The following morning, Dennis attends a football game at the school stadium, where he is gearing up for a significant move. However, his attention is diverted when he spots Arnie and Christine, fully restored, entering the stadium. This catches Buddy and his crew's interest. Moreover, Leigh emerges from the car, and she and Arnie share a kiss in the presence of everyone. Dennis is bewildered and distressed by this sight, causing him to lose focus on the game. Unfortunately, one of the opposing team's players took advantage of the situation, forcefully taking the ball from him, which resulted in him being knocked out and severely hurt. Days later, Dennis found himself in the hospital with a cast on his leg and a broken neck. Arnie, who had come to visit his friend, helped mend their old friendship. Dennis shared that the incident had left him unable to play football ever again, and that he was on the verge of becoming paralyzed. He also inquired about how Arnie managed to heal Christine so quickly, but his friend simply mentioned his hard work. However, the conversation quickly shifted, and Arnie mentioned that he had registered the car in his name to prevent Dennis from dropping out of school. Dennis began to notice a change in Arnie's behavior, sensing something troubling was brewing. Despite this, Arnie bid Dennis farewell, and as the evening approached, drove Leigh to a drive-in movie theater. Their time together was cut short when Leigh decided to leave the car, leaving Arnie to pursue her. The girl expressed her discomfort with spending time in the car, leading to a tense situation. Furthermore, the situation escalates when Arnie and Christine begin bickering over his apparent fixation on her, with him showing more interest in her than in his current girlfriend. He finds their discussion ridiculous and persuades Leigh to drive away due to the rain. The woman consents, but as they settle into the car, the windshield begins to act up, prompting Arnie to step outside to attempt a repair. At that moment, Leigh decides to grab a snack to munch on while listening to the radio, which unexpectedly turns on. To make matters even more peculiar, a powerful light flashes from the dashboard, causing the woman to feel nauseous, as though she's struggling to breathe. She's running low on breath, and Arnie, without hesitation, rushes to her aid, only to find the car acting independently and trapping her inside. Arnie's hope dwindles as he attempts to pry open the doors, to no avail. Fortunately, Leigh, who's already out of breath, manages to unlock the door, and the driver, who's standing by her, opens it. Witnessing this, Arnie explodes in anger, attacking the driver, who only wants to help dislodge the food lodged in the girl's throat, which he does successfully. Following this odd ordeal, Arnie escorts Leigh back home, but the girl quickly exits the car, refusing to speak. Despite this, Arnie attempts to make amends, but Leigh believes the car was responsible for the incident, attributing it to Christine's jealousy, as there's a peculiar pattern of strange occurrences whenever Arnie and Christine are together. Once more, Arnie believes it's just paranoia on his girlfriend's side, and she assures they'll discuss it the following day. Arnie then returns to the vehicle, but he's unable to start it without thinking, so he approaches Christine and tells her that Leigh's incident won't affect their relationship and that she will still use the car. Subsequently, he attempts to start it again, which succeeds, and they head back to the garage. At this point, Arnie leaves Christine at the garage. However, before he realizes it, Buddy and his crew manage to break in. Once Arnie is gone, the intruders target Christine, and, equipped with sledgehammers, they start wrecking the entire car. Unhappy with just ruining the bodywork, one of the criminals begins ripping apart the seats and smashing the radio. The following day, Arnie and Leigh make up and decide to go to the garage together, claiming the young man can retrieve his wallet from the vehicle. However, upon arrival, Arnie is taken aback to find Christine completely wrecked. Leigh inquires about the culprit and offers his support to her boyfriend, but Arnie's rage gets the better of him, compelling her to leave. Later, during the evening meal, the young man confides in his parents about the incident, hoping for their comfort and assurance that they will assist him in purchasing a new car. This only fuels Arnie's fury, as he is aware that his parents have always favored Leigh over Christine. Moreover, he blames them for the incident, arguing that if they had allowed him to park his car in the garage, none of this would have occurred. After expressing his grievances, Arnie storms out of the dinner table and retreats to his room. However, his father approaches him and advises him to make amends with his mother. Arnie's defiant actions lead his father to physically intervene. In retaliation, Arnie nearly kills his father. Time goes by, and Arnie remains fixated on Christine. He goes back to the workshop and plans to fix her item bit by bit, aiming to restore her to her original state. However, he's taken aback when he notices the car magically fixes its engine on its own. Curious, Arnie convinces Christine to demonstrate her other abilities, and to his amazement, the car self-restores completely without any input from him. In the middle of the road, one of Buddy's goons, Moochie, jumps into a truck and halts next to a highway. The young man keeps moving until he hears the rumble of a car engine in the background. As he approaches, he encounters Christine, who pulls into the street and halts right in front of him. Afraid that Arnie might be in the car, he tries to explain his actions, but the car switches on its lights and speeds away. Moochie sprints as hard as he can and manages to leap over a traffic jam just before the car reaches him. He believes he's lost the car, but Christine shows up shortly after and begins to pursue him. Moochie continues to flee and jumps out of a gate that leads to an old warehouse. He then runs down a tight trail, but right behind him, Christine is close behind, pursuing him with a leisurely pace, as if she's enjoying the chase. Eventually, Moochie finds himself cornered without an escape, with the car directly in front of him ready to stop. He takes out his pocket knife and warns the driver. However, Christine starts to move forward, and despite the alley being too narrow, she manages to squeeze through and traps Moochie. The following day, Arnie visits Dennis's room to share what occurred to Moochie. Dennis finds this situation odd, and even more peculiar that Christine was miraculously restored after being severely injured. Yet Ari simply dismisses it and exits. On his way out, Arnie encounters Detective Jenkins, who informs him he's looking into the destruction of his vehicle and the fate of Moochie, who was discovered with his body divided in two. Arnie admits he's unaware of the young man's demise. Despite this, he's content with the revelation. Jenkins starts to question Arnie, suspecting him, and discloses that he's also heard Leigh, the girlfriend of the young man, speak about the car's mysterious restoration. This revelation is the final blow for the young man, who becomes frustrated and leaves without providing any further information. Subsequently, he contacts Leigh, attempting to persuade her to meet him, but she declines, which only fuels Arnie's anger. Meanwhile, at a convenience store, Buddy and his friend Don purchase some beverages and head off. In the middle of the street, a car with its lights flashing begins to pursue them. His friend halts the car to identify the intruder, but the blinding headlights make it impossible to see. He attempts to evade the car by going backwards, only to find it mirrors his move, unmasking it as Christine. Irritated, his friend accelerates the car until it comes to a halt at a gas station where his companion Richie works. He exits the car, retrieves a metal rod, and gets ready to face whoever is tailing him. Out of nowhere, Christine speeds up, and without any delay, she smashes into Buddy's car head-on, completely crushing the side of the vehicle. The aggressor believes Arnie is lurking in there and challenges him to face him head-on. Yet Christine once more races towards her friend's vehicle, but this time she crashes it into the workshop. At that point, Don was trapped inside, dragged along with the vehicle, and collided with the wall. As if that weren't dire enough, the damaged car begins to spill gasoline, which lands on Richie's feet. Eventually, the car ignites, and when it touches the gasoline, the whole garage bursts into flames, engulfing Richie in the process. Witnessing this catastrophe, Buddy runs for his life. But Christine emerges from the burning garage, engulfed in flames, and sets out to finish her latest victim. In the heart of the shadowy and empty road, the blazing vehicle observes Buddy sprinting as far as he can. Ultimately, the beast car strikes its prey, leaving behind only the corpse, engulfed in flames. Subsequently, an elderly man named Will hears the sound of a car coming and upon opening his workshop doors, discovers Christine drenched in smoke. This confuses the old man, as Arnie had departed with his vehicle to fulfill a request for a task. Thus, he equips himself with a shotgun and heads towards Christine to determine the identity of the driver. The elderly man approaches and attempts to unlock the door, only to find it unbearably hot. He resorts to using an old rag to pry it open, but to his surprise, there's no one inside. Despite this, the old man decides to enter the vehicle to investigate. Christine seizes this opportunity to prevent any potential witnesses and, in addition, locks the old man inside the car. She then proceeds to injure him by pushing the seat against the dashboard. The following day, Arnie goes back to the garage and discovers multiple police vehicles parked there. Upon entering, he encounters Detective Jenkins, who informs him that his boss has been found dead in the vehicle. The most bizarre aspect of the situation is that it appears his own death was a suicide, as his firearm was found in the car. Confronted with this, Arnie admits he's at a loss for an explanation, but believes it was Christine who did it, who has mysteriously returned. At the same time, Dennis comes back from work and gets a call from Leigh, who requests to speak with him. She visits him and mentions her suspicion that the car is somehow influencing Arnie, causing him to behave erratically and aggressively. Dennis is skeptical that his buddy can do anything wrong, but if the car is controlling his actions, it must be destroyed. Following their talk, Leigh departs, but just moments later, Arnie and Christine show up, inviting Dennis to join them for a ride. However, Arnie's behavior becomes increasingly erratic. During the drive, he drinks excessively, exceeds the speed limit, and even lets the car drive autonomously. This behavior alarms Dennis, who recalls Leigh's warning that Arnie is not in control of his vehicle. Yet, instead of heeding his friend's advice, Arnie threatens Dennis and Christine, asserting that no one or nothing will obstruct them. To demonstrate his point, Arnie speeds the car to its limit and veers into another lane, nearly colliding with an oncoming vehicle. Witnessing his friend's descent into madness, Dennis decides to leave a note on Christine's car, requesting a meeting at the garage later that evening. When the time arrives, Dennis and Leigh are waiting for Arnie in the workshop, but he doesn't show up. Undeterred, the two friends decide to drive a nearby excavator into the workshop. They plan for Leigh to remain in the office and secure the gate upon Arnie's return, and then Dennis intends to use the bulldozer to destroy Christine. They proceed with their strategy, and the girl heads to the office, unaware that Christine had concealed herself in the workshop surrounded by debris. As the car switches on its lights and begins to move, the girl instinctively reaches for a hanging tire, narrowly avoiding being hit. Undeterred, Christine resumes her assault, but Dennis intervenes, using the excavator's claw to shield her from harm. Christine retreats to the workshop's far end, while Dennis maneuvers the tractor to face her. The two vehicles are lined up against each other, showing that Christine is not acting alone, but is being heavily influenced by Arnie. Suddenly, the car's headlights light up, and it miraculously repairs itself. The situation worsens as the excavator halts its operation, and Dennis attempts to get it running again. Meanwhile, the car accelerates towards the office, determined to eliminate Leigh for good. The woman vanishes, and the car collides with everything except for her, who is then propelled through the windshield. The woman returns to investigate his condition, only to be frightened away by Arnie, who surprises her. Tragically, he is fatally injured by shards of glass from the windshield. In his dying moments, Arnie tries to comfort his beloved car, but is overcome by his injuries and dies in front of Christine. Desperate, Leigh escapes the scene. However, Christine, in a final act of vengeance, positions herself to strike the woman. At the 11th hour, Leigh manages to swerve, causing the car to become wedged in a column. Dennis seizes the opportunity and revives the excavator, driving it towards Christine. The impact is severe, but the car fights back, attempting to escape. Christine heads in Leigh's direction, only for Dennis to use the excavator's claw to strike the car from behind. This strike renders the car incapacitated. With this blow, the enraged car appears to lose control and becomes immobile. Leigh hurried to the excavator to join Dennis, but Christine turned on the machine and started constructing again. Determined to stop the malevolence for good, Dennis revved up the bulldozer and crushed Christine, who fought back but failed. The battle concluded, and the following day, Dennis and Leigh reunited with Detective Jenkins amidst a pile of junk. There, they discovered Christine, now reduced to solid scrap metal. It appeared the threat had passed, but the trio heard music strikingly similar to the tunes the car once played on the radio. Luckily, it was just a worker from the junkyard with his portable speaker. Eventually, they departed, unaware that a fragment of Christine was beginning to move, indicating that the diabolical car was still operational.